keeping an eye on imaging. Discussion and commentary based on articles from JACC Cardiovascular Imaging.
Hello, my name is Vaskin Dilsizian. I'm Associate Editor of JACC Cardiovascular Imaging, and with me today is Dr. José Marineto, who's from the University of São Paulo from Brazil. We're going to be talking about chronic Chagas disease, specifically Chagas Cardiomyopathy, with an interesting paper where changes in blood flow and function seem to correlate with deterioration in LV dysfunction. Dr. Marineto, welcome.
Thanks very much. It's a pleasure being here.
Dr. Marineto, could you perhaps tell us about Chagas Cardiomyopathy and tell us how serious of a public health problem is this in Latin America?
Well, it is endemic in several countries over Latin America, and rough estimates, recent estimates, would range from 10 to 12 million people afflicted by the disease in these countries. And interestingly, in the United States, because of a migration from these endemic areas, there are at least 100,000 people living with Chagas disease in this country.
So it's a very important disease, and unfortunately it deteriorates with cardiomyopathy. In an intriguing paper you recently wrote in Circulation, you propose 4 pathogenetic mechanisms. Perhaps you can go through those and determine which ones of those are relevant, and specifically for this paper,
yes,
which mechanism do you think you pursued?
Yes. In essence, it's a parasitic and infectious disease, and the pathogenesis is due to an incessant, even it's low grade, it's an incessant inflammatory disease with the superimposed immune-mediated phenomena. On the other hand, dysautonomia and microcirculatory disturbances are very likely to play at least an ancillary role, and this is what we have explored in this last paper that is going to appear in JACC.
So in the current issue then, you've studied longitudinally about 36 patients, if I recollect, and you follow them with both perfusion and functional imaging. Could you tell us what you found and how does this change medical therapy?
Well, we had previously shown that around 8% of people who present at the clinics with atypical chest pain, but severe enough to warrant coronary angiography, 8% of these people have all sorts of perfusion defects at rest or fixed defects, even paradox defects. This is this last paper was on an investigation that was carried out longitudinally. We followed 36 patients over an average of 5.5 years. And the inclusion criteria were very simple, provided they had a good quality evaluation by myocardial scintigraphy and a concomitant evaluation of left ventricular function, regional and global function by echocardiography. We repeated these studies, and what we found was that left ventricular ejection fraction, as estimated by the Simpson rule, dropped from 60 to around 5%, to 50%. And this was accompanied by a deterioration in the number of left ventricular dysenergic areas. And in terms of the reversible perfusion defects, out of these 36 patients, 20 of them, roughly 55% of them, had perfusion defects which were reversible, showing only at stress. And over this follow-up period, nearly 70% of these defects turned into fixed defects.
That's right.
That is to say, the defects which were also showing at rest.
So what's interesting about this is that ischemic reversible defects become fixed defects at rest, which translate to regional and global LV dysfunction. I think this is the first time, in the absence of epicardial coronary artery disease,
absolutely,
you've hypothesized this is probably related to microvascular dysfunction?
Yes, that's right. We had postulated this, and this lends support to that general idea that this is an important pathogenesis mechanism leading to myocardial damage.
How would this change your therapy in these patients?
Well, in terms of therapy, everything we do in Chagas disease is empirical, and it's not evidence-based. And this is also applicable to any initiative trying to curb these perfusion defects and microvascular disturbances.
But certainly you would consider anti-ischemic medications, wouldn't you?
Yes,
given
we would consider
the data?
that. There was a seminal study by Dr. Emilio Kushner from the University of Cordoba in Argentina 25 years ago. He showed that giving dipyridamole to these patients, there was an improvement in the left ventricular performance that would go with that.
Yes.
And we will probably go now on and try to see if these defects have prognostic implications, and we will also try to curb this tendency to vasospasm and
Sure.
to microemboli from platelets, for example, which are probably the reasons for these disturbances to occur.
I wanted to thank you, Dr. Marinetto, for this fascinating presentation. Chagas disease is interesting. We're learning about microvascular disease, and for the first time, Dr. Marinetto's group showed a relationship between reversible defects, subsequently becoming resting perfusion defects, regional and global LV dysfunction. We look forward to future studies. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a question or comment about a CVN story? Send us an email at cvnfeedback@acc.org.